little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. All around the neighborhood, I'm gonna let it shine. All around the neighborhood, I'm gonna let it shine.
Well, I want to welcome you again today, wherever you are at watching this, and whatever time of the week you happen to be stopping by. Just glad that you are here. And if you are new to North Point, if you are new to this digital broadcast here, I'd encourage you to go to our website at npcc.cc and find out more about who we are. There's some different pages on there that'll let you know a little bit more about us as a church family. Maybe answer some of the questions you might have. It would be really great to have you join us sometime at our building where we have real live people. And we gather on Sunday mornings at 9 o'clock and 10:15, and it would be great to have you come and be our guest. I'm going to check that out sometime. I want to go back to a verse from last week. Hebrews 1 verse 3 said this: "The Son," that means Jesus, "is the radiance of God's glory and the exact representation of his being, sustaining all things by his powerful word." Whatever previous revelations or ideas of God we might have, I think they fall short of what this passage says. There are many ideas that may, to some degree, reflect God's glory, but the crucified Christ alone reflects the full brilliance of God's glory. And some of our concepts may, to some extent, represent God, but Jesus alone is the exact reflection of God's character and of his being. Some of the previous pictures reflect parts of who God is, but Jesus alone reveals God's very essence. The totality of who God is found in Jesus. And why is this so important? Why does this matter to us? Well, if we can go back into the Bible, into another part of it, and we're going to read it here in just a second, we learn this. The Jews, who were the very first, let's say, converts to this new way of experiencing the presence of God through Jesus, before Jesus came, they were looking for a powerful conqueror God, a king of strength and of might, as they were promised the Messiah, and when they received that early promise, they were exiles and prisoners in slavery, looking for some way out. They anticipated a Messiah who would rescue them and who I think would reign in some kind of earthly power. And all the other people who were there at that time, who were the Gentiles, those that were not Jews, when anybody ever talked about God, the picture they got of God was an all-knowing, all-wise, superior being, a righteous judge, maybe even a benevolent dictator who would rule. And the irony of this whole part of the story is what did we get? What did they get? And ultimately, what did we get? They got a God who looks both weak and foolish as he hangs on the cross. We find this out when we read what Paul wrote to the Corinthian church in verse 1, verses 23 to 25. Here's a portion of what he wrote. Jews demanded signs and Greeks looked for wisdom, but we preach Christ crucified, a stumbling block to Jews and foolishness to Gentiles. For the foolishness of God is wiser than human wisdom, and the weakness of God is stronger than human strength. I got to tell you, this was a new and uncomfortable language for them to read or to hear of God spoken in this way. And it was a totally new understanding of God. Foolishness and wisdom had changed places. You see, from then on, Jesus equaled God. Jesus now defined God. This man nailed to the cross, and his followers spoke of him as risen from the dead. That was not the God that they anticipated and looked forward to. You see, a respectable God wouldn't hang out with the people that Jesus hung out with. A respectable God wouldn't touch unclean people the way that Jesus did. A respectable God wouldn't turn down a position of power. A respectable God wouldn't turn the other cheek or forgive unlimited times. A respectable God wouldn't be the friend of sinners. Again, Jesus now defines God. To understand the great mystery of God, we don't need to look any further than Jesus. Jesus was a suffering servant, not a king in a castle. A powerful God would crush his enemies. A powerful God wouldn't tolerate being mocked. A powerful God would vindicate himself. He wouldn't just stand there and be humiliated and then be led to the cross. A powerful God would align himself with powerful people, not the weak, not the powerless, not the outcast. But that's what Jesus did. Those kind of people became Jesus' new family. And as we look back over history, we can look back in the Bible, we can look back throughout the course of history, and even to our day. You know, Jesus' tribe has always been a group of misfits and refugees. His kingdom has never had borders. His people reside in every corner of the earth. His family, his body, his church is found in jungles as well as urban centers. His people are numbered among both the Israelis and the Palestinians. Worship of Jesus takes place in the Ukraine and in Bosnia and in Nicaragua and even now, right now, in Afghanistan. Just as it takes place right here, right now in our country, in the suburbs and in farming centers and in the inner cities. Those are his people. We are his people. So as we come now to this time of communion today, I want you to remember this. I want you to remember this as hopefully as part of a tribe that numbers all kinds of people in all kinds of places with all different kinds of backgrounds and colors and heritage. Jesus defines God. His greatest victory was called the ultimate defeat by those who didn't walk with him. His life was the embodiment of weakness and foolishness. But his voice was the loudest when he gave up his last breath. What kind of God is this? His crown was made of thorns, not of gold. His throne was a wooden cross. His body and his blood was given as a sacrifice for all of us. And that is what we recognize when we take the bread and we take the juice with each other when we gather together. What kind of God is this? It's the kind of God that defeats evil and death and gives life, abundant life, to any who come to him by faith. Any of us. So I want you to remember that as you work, as you serve, and as you walk in the footsteps of Jesus this coming week. Till next time. See ya.
Blessed assurance, Jesus is mine. Oh, what a foretaste, glory divine, heir of salvation, purchase of perfect submission, perfect delight, visions of rapture now burst on my sight, angels descending, bring from above. This is my story. This is my song. Praising my Savior all the day long. This is my story. This is my song. Praising my Savior all the day long. Perfect submission, almost at rest. I am my Savior, happy and blessed, watching